Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, and the wonderful former title winner at Arsenal, Perry Groves. Here's what's coming up on the show this week.
Everybody keeps saying about how fantastic Raya is with the ball at his feet. I've said before, when you're playing for Brentford, there's a different pressure. You do that for Arsenal where you're in the spotlight. You keep saying, oh, we didn't punch him, but he cleaned him out. It was like WWE.
Did he? Nketiah has had a big chance actually to win it late on. If that's Erling Haaland, I'd suggest it's in the back of the net and Arsenal have got the 3 points.
It's actually disgraceful. I can't think of any mitigating circumstances whatsoever as to why he hasn't been sent off for a second yellow card. And there's every chance that the game opens up and Everton end up getting something out of it. I thought Harry Maguire in particular spoke brilliantly after the game, and his record says it all. If you look at his statistics over the course of the last year or so, he said it actually in an England press conference last week, my record is exemplary. It is. They always seem to win when he is in the team. Are you going to apologise to him?
You've been a big fan of his.
Do you want to use that camera over there to apologise to him?
No.
No side with 1 point from 9 games has ever survived in the Premier League. What are you going to do about Sheffield United?
I think they're doomed, I've got to say. They might even trouble Derby. What was Derby's lowest points?
11.
11 points, was it? Yeah, I think they might even not even get to 11.
Hello boys, you okay?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, I'm okay, not too bad. Back's a little bit better. Taking the drug, done a bit of exercising, I'm all right. Carried Crook for another show.
So mine's a little bit painful carrying you two yesterday.
Oh, what? Did he come in the studio?
I don't know, did you actually turn up
Did
for
you
last
grace us
week's
with your
show?
presence?
I did.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Disappeared halfway through. Actually, Crook did a show with us on Sunday in which he couldn't work out why he was in the studio for so long. He didn't realise that he had to be there for the whole thing, and actually ordered someone to go and get him some food at one point, which was a bit diva-ish, I thought.
First time I've ever seen someone have roast dinner whilst we're
I know, it was out of order, wasn't it? Really. And miss a whole section in order to consume it, which is quite amazing. He's really professional. But talking of professional, Arsenal pretty professional to come back, weren't they? I suppose that's your highlight of the week, is it? We'll talk about it in detail in just a moment, but is that your sort of standout moment?
Considering my WhatsApp on our groups was quite quiet, and I was waiting for the deluge of like abusive text messages and WhatsApp messages, and it was very silent. And then when it got to 2-2, then I was quite tempted to like send one out. I thought, no, just calm down.
Yeah. What about you? What was your highlight of the weekend? I found that Manchester United escaped from Bramall Lane with 3 points.
Yeah, probably the fact they scraped to win. But obviously I was at Stamford Bridge, really enjoyed the game. I thought Chelsea played just about as well as they have for a long time for 75 minutes. And actually Arsenal, I think, were quite fortunate to nick a point in the end. Some
good performances over the course of the weekend. Jacob Murphy at Newcastle's coming for a lot of praise. Luton Town's come back against Nottingham Forest, also been highlighted. Craig Pawson's performance in the Merseyside derby. Liverpool fans very happy with that. And a lot more besides to discuss as we unpick the Premier League weekend. Well, Chelsea were in cruise control, 2-0 up against Arsenal with just a handful of minutes left. And then what happened?
Sam, I told you before, it's fighting spirit, character, resilience, because let's be fair, Arsenal just weren't at it. They're like really sloppy in possession and giving the ball away very cheaply. I thought Pochettino got his tactics spot on, obviously with Palmer and Gallagher as false nines or like two number 10s. He had that block with Fernandes and Caicedo, that little square in the middle of the pitch, which stopped the ball getting through into Odegaard and Zinchenko. But the impact has worked again for Mikel Arteta, because I think it's the 6th time that a substitute has scored for Arsenal coming on in the Premier League this season, which has got them 8 points, which he always said about it's going to be a squad game, and Trossard being the main protagonist because he's always had an influence when he's come on and obviously getting the equalising goal.
Bearing in mind you're going for the title this year, Arsenal,
absolutely.
Aren't you a little bit embarrassed that you scraped a draw at Stamford Bridge where Chelsea have won just one of their last 12 home games?
No, because when you're not playing well, that's a sign that you can go on and win the title, and it's the first time in 2.5 years that Arsenal have come back from 2 goals down to actually get a point. So again, I see it as a positive. You might see it as negative.
I see it very negative.
And I see like it's quite an edifying human trait to take pleasure at someone else's great misfortune. But I didn't see it like that. I saw it as a point gain because we were so far off it.
Someone who takes a lot of pleasure at other people's misfortune. Alex Crook, what did you think of David Raya's performance?
I think both goalkeepers probably looked at themselves in the mirror and thought, I didn't necessarily give my best there. Raya for the second goal, which was a cross from Mudryk, whatever Pochettino will lead us to believe.
No.
He was
You
trying
don't give the eyes from out on the wing, do you?
he was trying to pick out Sterling at the far post. The goalkeeper's starting position is poor, always looks bad on a keeper when they're sort of backtracking towards their own net and the ball sails over their head. There was a touch of David Seaman from all those years ago about it. And then he nearly actually cost Arsenal the game because he passed it straight to Cole Palmer.
Well, he should have done.
Palmer should have scored.
Yeah.
And if that goes in, it's game over. At the other end, Sanchez, I've got a little bit of sympathy because I was right behind the Chelsea dugout, and a couple of minutes before his error leading to Declan Rice's goal, which he took really well, by the way, Rice, the goalkeeping coach, Tony Jimenez, quite a tall figure, stood up, gave him a real berating for kicking the ball long. He actually pointed where he wanted it on the left-hand side. He tried to do that, Sanchez, and he passed it straight to Declan Rice. So I do think it's an issue. You look at the goal that Bournemouth conceded late on, the way that coaches and managers put extra pressure on their goalkeepers, and we're seeing more and more of that type of mistake.
But that's the job now, right? So you have to accept that pressure.
You do, but there's individual responsibility, because I'd rather get a rollicking from my coach hitting it long and not costing a goal than actually playing out when you don't think it's the right time to play it. And you talked about Raya's mistake. He's just chosen the wrong option because he's tried to go...
Is that because his head was frazzled for the goal he just conceded?
Yeah, I think he's tried to go to the left-hand side where the pass is to Saliba on the right or into Ben White. And everybody keeps saying about how fantastic Raya is with the ball at his feet. I've said before, when you're playing for Brentford, there's a different pressure. If you make a mistake for Brentford, with all due respect, it doesn't become like national headlines and not everybody's talking about it. You do that for Arsenal where you're in the spotlight, you know, where the pressure's intensified.
And you've ousted the England goalkeeper,
and you've come in, and the goalkeeper you've replaced hasn't made a mistake and probably didn't deserve to get dropped. Then you're under even more pressure. And against Man City, we was at the game against Man City at the Emirates. When it went back to right, there was a real nervousness, not just on the pitch, but around the Emirates. So he's got to get himself through that.
Don't you think you're being a little bit short-sighted? Should you not be looking at the waves coming 200 metres in from the shore?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little ripple that Arteta thinks is going to be turned into a tidal wave at the end of it, where he's looking into the future, or he wants to go. I think Crookie didn't he thought it was going to be surfing, didn't he? It's like,
just in case you don't know about this or you haven't heard about it, basically we asked Mikel Arteta about David Raya's performance
and his kicking in particular,
and how his kicking wasn't as good this season as it was when they first signed him. And he said, I don't look at the shore. I look at the waves that develop in the middle of the sea and how they come into the surface or something like that. It was very Eric Cantona and Seagull's Trawler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a bit strange.
He didn't leave the interview too many places to go after that, in fairness.
Arsenal wanted a penalty for Sanchez clattering into Jesus. You think it is a penalty?
100% penalty. You keep saying, oh, he didn't punch him, but he cleaned him out. It was like WWE.
Did he?
He completely. I don't know if you've seen. Watch it again, Crookie.
It's a collision. It's a collision.
No, Jesus is jumping up. Sanchez is coming out, and if that's the centre half,
who
clatters into the centre forward.
Jesus is jumping out to challenge for the ball.
Yes.
Sanchez is coming out to challenge the ball.
Yeah.
So the two of them meet together. There's no hands involved here from Robert Sanchez.
No, it's not meeting.
So they collide.
Is coming towards Jesus, and he clatters him out the way. Has no chance of getting the ball.
It's not a nana, is it?
No.
It's not far off. It's not far. It's a penalty.
It's about 5 foot off.
It's a penalty.
Well,
and you're still not having it. Sorry, no, it's subjective. In my opinion, it's a penalty.
It wasn't a penalty. And what was a penalty was the handball, which there's a load of discussion about. I mean, we can go into it again if you want, but it's probably pretty boring. I mean, under the law as it is, it probably is a handball. Whether the VAR should have got involved is a different conversation. Mark Halsey in one of the papers on Monday morning suggesting that he shouldn't have done. But really, unless you hear the audio from the referee, you can't make that comment, because you have to know what the referee has or hasn't seen in order to realise whether it's a clear and obvious error. If the referee hasn't seen a handball at all, then Chris Kavanagh has to be told, oh, there actually was a handball there, do you want to check it out?
He could have been checking whose hand it hit as well, because obviously two players were jumping for the same ball.
So you don't know whether or not there should or should not have been a review unless you hear the audio, which is another advert, I suppose, for saying, let us hear the audio.
Perry did give us a very one-sided demonstration of how you can jump higher if you use your arms. as opposed to down by your
when
side.
When you jump, you're taught from when you're a young girl or a young boy, you're taught when you raise your arms to give you leverage and then you use it for balance. Have you ever seen a high jumper just go over the bar like head first without using their arms to get them up and over? Or a long jumper just run up and have his hands or her hands down by the side? Doesn't happen. So it's not an unnatural position.
They don't have to contend with handball, do they?
It's not. They probably know more about it than what we do.
As far as Arsenal are concerned, though, do you think the fact that they came back from 2-0 down, 2 goals in 7 minutes to save themselves, shows that they are title contenders?
Yeah, I agree with Perry. It shows they've got character. I think it shows the depth of the squad as well. Trossard in particular is someone who I think can have a real impact off the bench this season. He probably won't want that responsibility because he wants to be starting games. Still worry about the number 9 position. I thought Jesus was quite poor. Nketiah has had a big chance actually to win it late on. If that's Erling Haaland, I'd suggest it's in the back of the net and Arsenal have got the 3 points.
What a ball by Saka, though. I mean, he didn't really do much in the game because he couldn't get the better of Marc Cucurella, which was a bit of a surprise. Cucurella played very well in the game. But the ball from Saka for Trossard's goal is world class.
Yeah, that's why you look at Saka sometimes and he might not be influenced the game. And that's why Arteta never takes him off.
Yeah.
Because you know full well that he's going to produce something. So in the one time that Cucurella let him come inside and get him on his left foot, it was a brilliant cross on it, far post, and Trossard. And to be fair, on the other side, Gusto was very good as well. But that was probably his one mistake where he lost concentration and Trossard gets in behind him because he was brilliant against Martinelli. So all the individual battles, Chelsea won for, you'd say, 70, 75 minutes.
I don't know what you think, though, but every time I see Martinelli sprint, I think, oh, my God. He's so fast, isn't he? He's almost uncatchable.
He's absolute
and
lightning.
even some of the fastest players in the Chelsea team could get nowhere near him. He is so rapid. He's off the charts. Can I talk about Chelsea? Can we talk about Chelsea?
Why not?
Can we just say I think it's probably the best performance of the season so far. They played well against Burnley. They've won a couple of games now. They've obviously played this game and played well against a very, very good team. I thought tactically Pochettino got it right, as you were saying, with the 2 10s, the 2 wide split strikers. I thought Cole Palmer has settled in fantastically.
He's got edge, and he's got a little bit of
I really like him.
Was it Declan Rice where he's got booked from behind? Just
it's a bit naughty, but he's also had the balls to turn around to Raheem Sterling and said, "Mate, come off it. I'll take the penalties round here now." And he scored both of them so far. He's taken a penalty when they really needed a goal at Burnley. He's taken a penalty to put them in front in a London derby against Arsenal. I mean, that's a brilliant level of confidence.
I think the positive for Chelsea is that he's come here with a point to prove, because he probably feels like he should have been getting more of a chance at Manchester City. Obviously, Pep made those comments where it's pretty clear that he planned to sell him, and I think that's probably added a bit of fuel to his fire.
Yep, best performance for Chelsea over the course of the season so far. And what about the Merseyside derby? Liverpool winning by 2-0. And Perry was talking about how Mikel Arteta never takes off Bukayo Saka because he's always got the ability to make something happen. Well, poor old Mo Salah probably had his worst game for a long time in a Liverpool shirt during the course of the 90 minutes in that Merseyside derby. Bagged a brace and they won 2-0. And that's why Jurgen Klopp leaves him on.
Yeah, he does. I bet Sean Dyche hoped that he could have taken Craig Pawson off on him. He was like substitute referee. We'll talk about that in a minute. But with Mo Salah, I think that's 105 goals he scored at Anfield. So that's more than Kenny Dalglish, more than Steven Gerrard. So it just shows you how he is important. Because we always said about the 5 forwards that Liverpool have where they can rotate. He's one that, same as Arteta with Bukayo Saka, that he's not going to rotate. Because, as you said there, he was quite quiet in the game itself. And then he scores a penalty, which is pressure in the Merseyside derby. And then he gets his little tap in at the end.
150th appearance at Anfield as well for Liverpool during the game on Saturday. So that 105 goals in 150 appearances is pretty impressive. Controversy over the failure to send off Konate by Craig Pawson. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think we've all seen the replays. We've all seen it. I think at the time I called it during commentary. It's a yellow card. He has to be sent off. Why has he not sent him off?
Anfield.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
I think it's a factor.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're Everton, you're going to be fuming. First and foremost, it was the correct decision, I think, to send Ashley Young off. I'm surprised that someone with his level of experience and big game experience made that second challenge, having already been booked. But if you're going to send him off for 2 yellow cards, you have to be consistent. Konate has to go as well. And just to add insult to injury, seconds later, Jurgen Klopp, knowing that they should be down to 10 men, takes him off so that he doesn't get the chance to get another yellow card.
He's not stupid, Jurgen Klopp, is he? I mean, he said to me afterwards, he said the next thing he does, he's going to be off, so I've got to be really careful, and I had to drag him off. He knew they'd got away with one. It's actually disgraceful that has allowed to happen, and there's no excuse for it. I can't think of any mitigating circumstances whatsoever as to why he hasn't been sent off for a second yellow card. And I asked Sean Dyche afterwards, are we in a situation where too many of these decisions are influencing the outcomes of big games? And he said to me, you never know what's going to happen in the circumstances. But it was 0-0 at that point, and there's every chance that the game opens up and Everton end up getting something out of it.
I think, as you said there, Everton looked quite comfortable. You know, he got very well structured, which he normally does. They looked dangerous on the counter-attack with Calvert-Lewin and Doucouré. Then you go down to 10 men. You're talking about the Ashley Young send-off. That's because through the whole game, I think Diaz had Ashley Young's number. You know, when you can tell that a fullback is just unnerved by something. So that was panic.
Well, he is 52.
Well, can I ask you a question? Does the manager have a case to answer there? Because they've got Nathan Patterson on the bench, and Nathan Patterson came onto the field of play. Why wasn't he selected ahead of Ashley Young? Ashley Young is 38 years and 90 days old. With all due respect, taking on Luis Diaz is not going to be the easiest deployment of your career.
Well, I think it seems like there's a bit of a trend in there, because we'll talk about Brighton later on, and James Milner's playing at right back.
Is there some sort of competition that we don't know about, which is, can we find the oldest right back?
I think, in fairness, it's a Merseyside derby. I think the reason that Ashley Young is out there is because of that big game experience that I've talked about, but obviously it completely backfired. And you've got Patterson, who's playing games for Scotland in pressure situations. So, yeah, I think maybe if Sean Dyche had his time again, the lineup might be
The other thing about Nathan Patterson...
He's defending more like Will Young, wasn't he, than those two occasions?
Yeah, very quickly after that yellow card, he thought, I better leave right now.
He certainly wasn't evergreen.
That's the only one you know, isn't it?
He's got
Name me another Will Young song.
I think I better leave right now.
And we just gave you that.
No, you can stay. Actually, for a change, you can stay here. That's what he says when we're doing the show on a Sunday.
The thing about Nathan Patterson is that he's played an old firm game. It's not like he's not used to big matches and intense atmospheres. He's done it before. He's a good defender. And he has a little bit more athleticism than Ashley Young. With all due respect, I thought that was a bit of a strange selection. Liverpool, I think they're the best counter-attacking team in the league. They're deadly at those fast breaks. And actually, prior to the sending off, and a lot of talk is about the sending off, they probably should have got themselves in front. Everton attacking at one end, and very quickly they turned defence into attack.
Yeah, that's what they sort of suck you onto them on purpose. They if they don't win on the first press, the second, then they just drop off. Whereas before, it used to be intense pressure, didn't it? It was like the Genga pressing, like 1 a go, 2 a go, 3 a 4. They've just changed a little bit, and the midfield, they've added the legs, so everybody knew. I think Jurgen Klopp wanted to give that team that got so close, didn't they, the season where they got into all the finals and come runners up to Man City. And we wanted to give those players the chance the next season, which was a mistake. So Szoboszlai has taken like a duck to water, basically. He's been absolutely outstanding. I think people were surprised at his passing range, Szoboszlai. They knew he had the energy, but they didn't realise he had that sort of vision as well. So McAllister probably playing a little bit deeper. He's playing okay, but there's still even more to come from McAllister. So again, they've got different options. The Endo can play, can't he, as the holding midfield player. So
they're in good shape.
Yeah, very much so. I said beginning of the season, Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal would be the three that would be challenging for the title.
The handball, Michael Keane, that was the helping hand that Liverpool needed to make the breakthrough. Any complaints about that?
Not under the current laws. Again, you can debate if you agree with the law or not, but that is the law, and I think by the rule book it was the correct call.
Is there any discussion about proximity there? Because it came across quickly. What I couldn't understand was the angle of his arm. His arm almost sort of came out like it was broken.
That is an unnatural position. That's not...
Because he's not jumping.
Yeah, exactly. Also, but don't you think that Michael Keane sometimes looks like a baby giraffe who's always just been born and trying to get his balance? He always looks to me like he's off balance. And even that, in that case, if you look, you go, actually, Michael, why have you got your arm out there? Because he's actually static and his arms come. I think that's in the old laws, that's handball.
Yeah. As a player, how difficult is it to play against 10 men?
Actually, under George Graeme, we used to do a lot of defence versus forwards, and we used to do it with 8 men. So like go 9, then down to 8, and then you get your 2 blocks of 4. And if you get it structured properly, how many games you commentated on where you think, oh, they're not breaking this team down? Because if you get your distances right between your back four or your five or your three midfield players, but I always think the brave managers, they always leave sometimes one or two up front, one off the front man, because you have to give the opposition that little bit of a worry that if you do break, then you're going to cause them problems. So it is difficult to break.
You thought taking off Calvert-Lewin was a mistake because it
took away that
initiative
threat. Exactly,
to Liverpool.
Yeah, I think it always ruins a game whenever you have a team go down to 10 men because their emphasis changes. They think, right, we don't have to get anything from this game now apart from a draw. And if we can keep it tight, then we're going to escape here with something that's fine by us. And it actually ruins it as a spectacle, which I think it did actually, because it was quite a lively game up until.
But I don't think enough managers, when their team has got the one-man advantage, take a defender off and go, right, I'm taking the defender off.
Exactly what Liverpool should
I'm going
have done.
4 up front.
And they did do in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They took off the left back and played Luis Diaz out there, and then played with almost like three at the back, lopsided three, and Diaz playing on the left-hand side as an extra winger. That sort of worked for them, and it opened Everton up a little bit because you need width in that situation.
Yeah, and what you need to do,
move the ball quickly.
Yeah, and you just need to create chaos in the 18-yard box. So if you're getting crosses in, you're hoping that concentration level drop, and the quality players that have in the front areas, then you know you're going to take a chance.
Just stick Darwin Nunez on. He
just get it in far post.
He really does. Okay, talking of chaos, let's talk about Manchester United. For the first time this season, Manchester United have recorded back-to-back Premier League wins. Does that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside?
I wouldn't go that far. It was a difficult listen on Saturday night driving back from Chelsea, and not because of Dance's commentary. It just felt so frenetic and so uncomfortable, and everything is just so hard for Manchester United at this moment in time. We've got Copenhagen on Tuesday night. I'll be there, as you know. In the past, that would have been a straightforward Champions League win, but nothing is straightforward. The habit they've got into of scoring an important goal, and it felt like an important goal when McTominay once again came up with a big moment, and they concede minutes later in ridiculous fashion, giving away a Stonewall penalty, and all of a sudden they've got to grind it out again. They've missed chances. I think Marcus Rashford in particular had a lot of opportunities to really put Sheffield United to the sword, and they didn't do that. But back-to-back wins, a little bit of spirit, a little bit of character, and we've not mentioned him yet. Victory in tribute to Sir Bobby Charlton, I think, was all important.
Yeah, and it was an emotional day, and I thought Harry Maguire in particular spoke brilliantly after the game. And he's not the captain anymore, but he still speaks like the leader of that group. And I thought he was excellent in the match. Maybe could have given away a penalty, but apart from that, his performance was almost faultless. And I think he's been very good since coming back into the team, and his record says it all. If you look at his statistics over the course of the last year or so, he said it actually in an England press conference last week. My record is exemplary. It is. They always seem to win when he is in the team, and he never lets Manchester. Well, I know you pick out certain instances, but I don't think he ever lets Manchester United down.
So Harry Maguire is Man United's equivalent to Rodri at Man City, because when Rodri plays for Man City, they always win.
Conflating the two.
They always win, right? But Crookie, he's a good player, Harry Maguire. Isn't he?
You've been a apologise to him?
You've been a big fan of his.
Do you want to use that camera over there to apologise to him?
No. But
Please forgive me.
I said it on Sunday. I think Maguire was probably just about United's best player, and he has been for a few weeks now. So credit to him, because it looked like his career at the club was over. He's got this renaissance now, and he needs to grab it with both hands.
How worrying is it that Manchester United had to scrap for a victory against a team that have taken 1 point from 9 games and are amongst the worst 4 teams that have ever played Premier League football statistically after 9 games?
See, Sam, that's where we're different. My glass is always half full. It's not half empty. And the reason being is, you said there, scrap to beat Sheffield United. Before, they weren't scrapping. Before, there was no spirit there, was it? There was no fight.
I like the fact that you've picked a positive out of that statement.
Yeah, because if I was a Manchester United fan, I want players like Scott McTominay, and you said about Harry Maguire having a big heart.
Johnny Evans.
And that's Harry Maguire looks better when he's got a better structure around him. So when he plays for England, that's why he always plays well for England, because Gareth Southgate has England structured better than what Man United have been. And Erik Ten Hag is fighting all of these different problems off the pitch. The culture at Manchester United, everybody knows, has been rotten for probably 3 or 4 years on the playing side. So he's trying to inflict and his discipline on this group of players. And I think not that the owners are going to get involved because they don't want to pay him off anyway, they don't want to spend any money, but they have to stick with Ten Hag, because it's going to be rocky this little period of time, but he's got to get rid of a few little bits of deadwood. And I think that he's the manager to take Manchester United forward.
Hold on. He's had 3 transfer windows now. It's not like he hasn't had the opportunity to move people out. They've decided that they haven't wanted to do that for whatever reason.
Well, they're not very good at that, are they? They're not good at offloading players. That's
Well,
why
their
the balance sheet doesn't look great.
Exactly.
So I don't think that's a manager issue. I think he probably would have let Harry Maguire go. Had Maguire
Which
shown
would have been
more desire to do
actually
so.
would have been a mistake.
Well, you don't know who he would have replaced him with. You know, if they'd let him go, they would have signed somebody else.
Well, he probably would have signed someone from the Eredivisie, I would have thought.
And to be fair to Erik ten Hag, is Manchester United haven't had their first choice back four of they. If you look at the back four that played against Sheffield United, they're not first choice.
They're still finding their way. You know, Mason Mount on the bench, that will disappoint him. I think Højlund, obviously yet to score in the Premier League, that needs to change sooner rather than later.
Are you concerned about that?
Not overly, because he's getting himself in positions. It was a brilliant save from Foderingham to deny him from close range.
Really
On another day, that finds the back of the net. So if he wasn't getting himself into goal-scoring positions, I'd be concerned. But I do think the wide players can help. Rashford cuts inside every time and tries to go on his own. Anthony, I don't know what Anthony is. I think actually Højlund could benefit from Garnacho being given a run in the team, and I think Garnacho deserves a run in the team.
How long have we been talking about this? How long have we been talking about Anthony and he's not living up to expectation? How many times have we talking about the wide players needing to contribute more? Not only contribute more going forward, but contribute more defensively. I mean, Erik ten Hag, I thought, was right when he said afterwards, we need to be more composed in the moments after we've scored a goal. We need to make sure that we're a little bit more locked down and we're organised. I think he's working in difficult circumstances. I do think they gave him too much power during the summer. I do think they gave him too much of a licence to sign players that he already knew. There should be a better structure than that. But I also think that you've got to back this guy to get it right over time, because if you don't do that, you're starting to get in your massive
And Manchester
trouble.
United fans are backing him, by the way.
Good.
So, you know,
despite the fact that in the international break there was a little rumble, I saw.
I didn't see too much of that.
What was that deck there? Were they?
That's PJ and Duncan back in the day.
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry, yeah. Before they changed.
Close though.
Yeah.
No side with 1 point from 9 games has ever survived in the Premier League. What are you going to do about Sheffield United?
I think they're doomed, I've got to say, because I just look at. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the team spirit. Obviously, they've run Spurs close, haven't they, away from home. Man City really close. But I just think I can't see where the goals are coming from. I know McBurney got his penalty. But I can't see where their goals are coming from, and they're like trying to play decent football, but they just leave themselves far too open, you know. So they become quite nice to play against. And whereas you look at the difference between them and Luton, where Luton are really difficult and hard to play against, especially at Kenilworth Road, I think that Sheffield United, they might even trouble Derby. What was Derby's lowest points?
11.
11 points, was it? Yeah, I think they might even not even get to 11.
Are you concerned about the future of Paul Heckingbottom?
I think so, because when managers keep losing games, ultimately they end up losing their job. And I mentioned on the Sunday session, I feel sorry for him because obviously they sold Njai right before the start of the season. They sold Sander Berge. Yes, they brought in...
Oh, no, a Sheffield United fan got in touch with us and said you were uneducated when you said they lost their 2 best players.
I think he was trying...
I didn't mean about football, just meant uneducated in general.
I think he was trying to suggest the reasons behind their departures, i.e. that neither of them were particularly keen to sign a new contract. Well, actually... in the case of Njai, that wasn't true, was it? Because they had a new contract announcement lined up.
Well, Njai only went to Marseille because Marseille was his boyhood club. He grew up supporting them. That was a late development because they needed a striker. And I'd mentioned to you that they're on the lookout for a striker. Be careful because they're going to pinch someone last minute because the fans weren't satisfied. They needed to appease them. They wanted to bring someone in. And they ended up swooping for someone who was attached to the club emotionally, and he couldn't turn that down. It's like, you know, someone... If Manchester United veterans ever came for you, you'd be there in a heartbeat.
It doesn't change the fact they did lose their 2 best players.
They did.
Right before the start of the season. They brought in Cameron Archer, but he's not the finished article yet. They took a chance on Gustavo Harmer, actually, I think looks right at home in the Premier League, but that was a gamble as well.
They've also had a lot of injury issues, especially to that back line, which has caused them problems.
I don't see the sacking Heckingbottom is going to change anything, but I think inevitably that will happen.
Because if you lose too many games in the Premier League, that is the case. And also, I don't know if you saw the owner on a podcast about 3 months ago, just talking about sort of the relationships that he's got with Chris Wilder, for example. And I think that may well be a change that happens at some point in the future. We've already told you about that here on Premier League All Access. Manchester City beat Brighton by 2-1 on Saturday. Are we okay with goalkeepers switching? I know that Brighton have changed their goalkeeper quite a lot. You're not okay with it?
Not really.
You're not okay with the 2 number ones?
You need to get a relationship with, if it's your back four or your 3 centre halves, you need to have that understanding where you don't have to second guess stuff.
So how are you about Pep Guardiola resting Ederson?
Did he rest him? Or
Rested him.
Was he dropped as a result of back-to-back defeats?
Rested him, apparently.
On that side of it, to be fair, when Man City are playing most opponents, their goalkeeper doesn't have that much to do anyway, does he? So you can bet your life that Ederson will be back this week, obviously, for the Champions League games. I'd be more concerned on the other side with De Zerbi, and we talked about playing fullbacks at 52, playing James Milner as right fullback, and not having any protection.
I was going to say, I don't actually think much of it was down to James Milner. I think it was to do with the fact that no one bothered to get out there and help him out with Jeremy Doku, who is, sprightly, brilliant, great at carrying the ball, and has more tricks than a magician.
Is he a problem for Jack Grealish?
Yes, I've actually got that written down. What does this mean for Jack Grealish?
There was a quote from Pep Guardiola in the paper today actually saying that he wants to get Jack Grealish back to where he was before, and they're going to work on him because he thinks his levels has just dropped a little bit, but they're going to work on him individually. But they're two different sorts. But the thing with Doku, I think the reason that Guardiola brought Doku in is because he knew that teams sit very deep against Man City, and he needs someone who's brilliant 1v1. Jack Grealish can do it, but he, again, comes inside most of the time and plays, where Doku will go on the outside, he'll go on the inside. So he's like an old-fashioned winger.
Oh, he's lightning quick as well, Perry, isn't he?
But that's not necessarily over the 20-30. He's lightning quick
with the ball,
with the ball, that's and over like 5. He's got explosive pace. And they say, I think poor old James Milner, brilliant player that he's been over about 27 years, I think it is, isn't it? But he probably needs to go and sit in an ice bath somewhere.
Adingra's got to get out there and help him out. And I thought that structurally that was a bit of an issue. Again, Brighton getting into a situation where they find themselves 2-0 down very quickly, inside 20 minutes. That's not the first time that's happened this season.
No, they've made slow starts in a few games. I think they're giving away too many chances and conceding too many goals, and you can't afford to do that. When you're taking on a wounded Manchester City team, we expected there could be a backlash from those back-to-back defeats, and indeed there was. So I think Brighton, having lost Caicedo, having lost McAllister, I think they're still finding their way. De Zerbi's still trying to find his best team, and obviously they've got a huge game in the Europa League against Ajax in midweek. Ajax second from bottom in the Dutch league, so it's a massive opportunity for Brighton to really kickstart their European campaign.
When that was drawn out of the hat, you thought, that's a tough group for them. But they've got Ajax have been useless. They lost at the weekend to Utrecht.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not
more protest from fans as well.
Yeah, it's not a great situation they find themselves in. Where's their former manager, Erik Ten Hag? They need him back. Second yellow for Manuel Akanji means he misses the Manchester derby. Was it?
Yes, 100%.
You two are harsh.
Why don't you think it was? You don't think he tried to?
Not every contact, not every foul is a yellow card.
He just got...
Did he need to do it?
He got too tight. He got far too tight. So don't go in that far. And then he's actually tried to grab the shirt.
He's already been booked, just let him go.
Exactly. I suppose the problem is it was the definition of it is you're upsetting the promising attack, aren't you? You're denying a promising attack. So maybe it was right. I just think, give away... Suspending players when we don't need to suspend players. We've got to be a bit careful about that. Okay, what about Newcastle versus Crystal Palace? Another victory for Newcastle. Did you know that they've scored more goals in the first 9 games than they have done since 94-95?
Jacob Murphy was absolutely outstandanding. Like his goal and a couple of assists as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure he meant the finish. He's trying to put that back into the area, isn't
he? He didn't mean the finish.
Come on, glass half full, please, people.
But Kieran Trippier,
he's playing brilliantly.
He meant the layoff.
Most assists in the Premier League, Kieran Trippier.
Yeah.
He had a good article. He said that when he went to Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone, he said he learned actually how to play the right back role properly on the defensive side, and that gives you more confidence, obviously, going forward. And Sean Longstaff is another one I think we should give a mention as well, because Newcastle's form, a lot of their players have improved individually, but when they were struggling, he wasn't in the side. And he brought him back into the midfield 3. And his athleticism, his drive going forward has sort of pulled Newcastle along with him, and he started to score goals as well.
You mentioned there about the situation involving Newcastle and Jacob Murphy and Kieran Trippier learning the right full-back role properly at Atletico Madrid. It wasn't the only thing that he learned at Atletico Madrid, was it? He's learned to be a little bit nasty, to time waste, the dark arts, all those things that he's brought back from time with dirty Diego Simeone. I was actually just looking at my piece of paper here and asking this question. Was Anthony Gordon's miss of the season Or was that title going to go to Koleosho this weekend? Which one of them was the worst miss out of the two?
I probably would go for Gordon, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll go.
It was outstanding, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How did you miss from that sort of range?
Yeah, incredible. Luckily for Newcastle, it didn't cost them. And actually, Gordon played quite well apart from that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the statistics of this game, you'll see that, I mean, sometimes people just look at the statistics and say, it was more of an even game than just a 4-0. Crystal Palace had 17 shots. Well, they did. They had 15 of those in the second half of the game when it was already 3-0 to Newcastle.
And Newcastle had one eye on Dortmund.
This was a very one-sided match. Murphy, Gordon, Longstaff and Wilson all scoring. Wilson's goal, a brilliant finish, I thought, as well. Just the way he shapes his body. You always know in a one-on-one situation,
he's not going to miss.
He's never going to miss.
But
he's always going to
also,
score.
it's a great ball from Jacob Murphy from out on that right-hand side. Just put it like across the 18-yard box. And you talk about, putting players in and out. Eddie Howe's doing it brilliant with Isaac and with Callum Wilson, because both of them are playing to a real high standard.
With Callum Wilson as well, the way he bullied Mark Gurley, I thought was impressive too. He showed a lot of strength, character, also sort of that nous and know-how that a forward needs in order to sort of get their body in the right place to outwit a central defender. You mentioned about Eddie Howe and the good job that he is doing. I think he probably needs a little bit more credit, doesn't he?
He does, because I think a lot of people expected that this season might be difficult to emulate what they achieved last season, back in the Champions League, reached the Cup final, obviously drawn in that group of death, but they've started really well in Europe. And actually, I think their European campaign, maybe grinding out that point away from home in Milan, has really given them the confidence to kick on. Defensively, they look a lot more resolute than they did maybe early in the season. And obviously, they had the Tonali situation, which has created a storm off the pitch. They dealt with that. Eddie Howe's just the best man. If you've got a chaotic situation off the field like that, he just brings everyone together. He deals with it in a calm manner, and they're going great guns.
Winners on Friday night against Werder Bremen and Borussia Dortmund are the next ones up to St James's Park. Wednesday night, I'm doing that game for television. I cannot wait.
The atmosphere will be all right, won't it? You think with the
atmosphere
Dortmund fans
of the PSG
coming?
Game was off the charts. This one's going to be amazing. Dortmund are fourth in the Bundesliga this season, behind Leverkusen, behind Bayern Munich. They've been okay. They drew 0-0 in their game against Milan at home. I think they've got a chance to put another 3 points on the board here.
I agree.
Newcastle, absolutely, yeah, because as you said there, with the Geordie faithful getting behind their team and creating that, was it 52,000 at St James's Park? Be interested to see what team he goes with, because he's not adverse to having little changes. We mentioned Isaac and with Wilson. Almiron was on the bench, was it, at the weekend? Jacob Murphy was playing. Because if you're Jacob Murphy,
you want to play. You want to start this game.
You'd be pretty upset if he was pulled out for that one.
8 games unbeaten in all competitions, Newcastle. 22 goals in that time,
and not
conceding only 3.
Exactly.
Which is, one of the things that was the bedrock of their success last season was making sure that they were secure at the back, and they've done that really well. Whatever you do, though, don't ask Dan Burn to take a throw-in.
Don't ask to take a throw-in, but you just mentioned Dan Burn there. Why doesn't he get a mention when they say about England haven't got left backs, natural left-sided, because he can play left-back in a 4, which he's proven if you're structured properly. He gives you another option if he wants to go 3 centre-halves, playing left-sided with his left foot, and it opens out that side of the pitch. And Sean Longstaff.
Yeah, but they haven't got tracksuits that big.
Is Gareth Southgate ageist when it comes to Dan Burn?
I think it might be height.
He might be tallest.
I think he's heightest.
Yeah, tallest.
He doesn't he's too big. At the end of the day.
6'7" and it
they haven't made a tracksuit that big since Peter Crouch, and it was difficult, and it always seemed to come up on his arms. It didn't look right. So
Giacomo, can't he? Get it from Giacomo, be all right.
Crookie, where should he get it from?
Giacomo's good.
There you go.
Yeah. Other Champions League games this week, live on the talkSPORT network actually, Sevilla against Arsenal.
Pressure.
What are you hoping for?
Pressure. Big pressure game.
They've got to get something, haven't they?
Well, because we're really good against PSV, which...
they were poor,
They were poor, but
awful.
That was probably Arsenal's best performance of the season. Really struggled against Lens, where
they really struggled
they
against
weren't
Lens.
at it at all, where Declan Rice was probably the only one who played anywhere near to stand he should have. So the doublehead against Sevilla is massive for Mikel Arteta. I'm
doing the games live on talkSPORT. 7 o'clock we start on Tuesday night. Join us for that. And in terms of the Champions League with Arsenal, Sevilla have just got a 1-1 draw with Real Madrid in controversial circumstances at their home ground. Their team, who are desperate for points in La Liga because they haven't had a great start to the season, have got a lot of ground to make up, will be keen to make an impact, I think.
Absolutely. And listen, no away game in the Champions League is easy. As you mentioned, they've put themselves under a little bit of pressure, Arsenal, because of that defeat. It's a bit unfortunate, actually, with the way the draw works out. They've got to play back-to-back away games.
Yeah.
You know, if this was at the Emirates, as it will be obviously in a few weeks' time, you'd fancy Arsenal strongly. But I think if you offer Mikel Arteta a 1-0 win now, we'd probably take it.
They have weapons of Campos, El Nassiri, players that they've got to be very careful of. Arsenal. A couple of other mentions from the games at the weekend. Nottingham Forest had a 2-0 lead against Luton and blew it. They should have been over the hill and far away.
Yeah, Luton, we said about their fighting qualities, and
there's
a group of players that is really immersed into the way that Rob Edwards, the manager, wants them to play. Adebayo coming off, again, we talked about the impactors, which was really shocking defending from, not just Lockyer's big ball into the box, wasn't it? But I loved the fact that it was like a Mick Hartford sort of goal, wasn't it? Old-fashioned centre forward.
Great touch.
Just off your chest, and a brilliant finish. Ogbene, who I think is a player of getting obviously the first goal. Mm-hmm. So Luton, that'll do absolute wonders for their confidence. And if you'd have said to Rob Edwards at this stage of season, you'll be out of the relegation places, he'd have snapped your hands off, because this group of players will now start believing that they can play in the Premier League.
I like the fact that they are just adapting to the style that's required to get them points. They just want to get points. They're not interested in making everybody like them. They're there just to make sure that they try and survive in the Premier League. On the converse flip side of that, Vincent Kompany's Burnley cannot buy a win. The only win they've got so far this season was a pretty fluky win away at Kenilworth Road. Apart from that, they've been disappointing. And what's more troubling for me is how well they've been beaten, especially in a game against Brentford, who have been in bad form.
Yeah, it was too easy for Brentford. I mean, they scored a couple of terrific goals, especially one from Godosh. But I think Kompany's being found out a bit. You know, he got a lot of plaudits last season for the way that they steamrolled their way to the Championship. It was always going to be more difficult to play that kind of expansive football in the Premier League, but he's not so far been willing to sacrifice his principles. If he doesn't, I think they're going to go down. They concede too many goals.
Do you know the worrying thing is, you look at Brentford, they hadn't won in 6 games before that game, and Brentford were excellent. I think it's 18 games on the trot they've scored at the GTEC Stadium in the Premier League, playing Mopai up front and obviously Whistle one side and Burnley the other. You looked at Burnley, their best player, and he's been their best player probably over the last 4 is Trafford in goal.
He has so much work to do.
Exactly, so that's the worry. You know, you'd be looking to pick up points from that sort of game. And we talked about Premier League experience as well. I think in the starting 11 you had Sander Berge, you had Connor Roberts at right back and Taylor at left back. Players were the only ones with Premier League experience. Look at Luton, they've added Andros Townsend and they've got Ross Barkley in their squad. So they have, Premier League experience, and Burnley just far too well when they play. I agree, Crook. I think Vincent Kompany's been given a bit of a free pass because they are so open and so flimsy when they're out of possession.
Again, far too much power, and to bring in players from areas of the world that probably he's an expert in, no one knows too much about. It worked last year in the Championship. It's not worked so far in the Premier League. They're in danger of getting sucked very much into, well, they're in the relegation fight, that's for sure. Congratulations to Aston Villa, another good performance from Ollie Watkins and his crew. They've won their last 11 games at Villa Park, and Unai Emery has done a very good job. Douglas Luiz played really well. Best quote of the day was the fact that he then said, after he scored his 2 goals, I thought we got a bit sloppy and got a bit casual, gave away a couple of misplaced passes. He needs to improve on that. Cheers, mate.
You know what that was, though? Right, I'm with Douglas Luiz. He scored it. I've done my job.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I'm all right.
I'm done. Actually, I remember after scoring 2 goals, didn't he try and score from a corner as well? I thought he did all right.
Can we stop the count now, by the way, when it comes to Aston Villa? They're 3 points ahead of Newcastle. Obviously, I've got that charity bet of £500 with Jim White, so let's just call it now, yeah?
No,
game over.
Because I think Newcastle have lost games which they should have won, and I think Aston Villa have won games they should have not managed to get 3 points in. I still think that that's going to be neck and neck right to the very end. Come on, Newcastle. I don't care. It's not like I don't like Aston Villa. I do like Aston Villa. I actually love the kit, and I've got.
And vice versa. I love Newcastle, by the way. By the book.
I've got a pair of shorts. But just so that he has to pay £500, I'd love them to finish below Newcastle. And Gary O'Neill, one word.
Excellent.
I thought revenge, but fair enough.
Yeah, retribution.
Yeah, there we are. They beat Bournemouth away from home. Wolves doing very well, playing some good football as well. Really good football, Wolves. One particular move I thought should have generated a goal, and Neto fired over the top of the crossbar. Kalajdzic getting the winner in that game. Congratulations to them. Burnley against Bournemouth is next for those two at the bottom of the table. That should be fascinating. Maybe someone will get a victory. Right, that's it from us. We're back on Thursday to preview all the weekend's action, including next weekend a huge Manchester derby. Do you want to go? Do you want to go? Come with me. We're going to go. It'll be great fun, I promise you.
You going to have your Man United shirt on? No?
Me? No, I haven't got a Man United shirt.
I thought you had a half. I thought you had.
I haven't got a half. Don't start. No? Don't start giving it just because you got lucky one weekend. Don't start. Right, okay, that's it from us. We'll be back on Thursday. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on wherever you listen to your podcast. And remember, all the football is live on the talkSPORT app.